All right, and hello everyone. We have another community question space. We have Gaurav, our CEO, with us. How are you doing today, Gaurav?
Doing great, sir. Doing great. God's been great.
Great. And then we have our co-founder and COO, Bassam, on. He is just getting invited as a speaker. But we can get started. As a note to our listeners, we will be taking questions as they were given in our Discord group, but we are also taking live questions. If you have them, send them through the chat, and we'll be able to take them in which the order in which they're given. There he is. How are you doing today, sir? Boston, can you hear us? Oh, having some technical difficulties, but we can go forward with these questions. All right. Gaurav, the first. Yep, can hear you now.
Thank you for having us.
Hey, thank you for coming and always glad to have you chatting with us. The first question I have is for Gaurav. What is the focus of the project now with the new changes that were announced last week?
There are two main focuses after the recent change. One is basically doubling down on the builder first mentality, which we always had. And second, doubling down on the execution, which we were always great at. And that's why these fundamental changes also we were making so that the the decision making, both on the tech side and the execution side, becomes as close to each other as possible. And I think we have already proven as a network that we are not one of the projects which are trying to find the product market fit. I think we have already proven that. We're already like making like waves in this market. We are basically getting a huge amount of revenue coming in. So we've proven our product and market fit already. Now to have a next phase of exponential growth, which we're already achieving, but even like increasing that even more, the thing which we want to focus on is the products which our tech fellow builders are asking for, right? And we want to make sure that execution arm remains the way it was in past, and in fact becomes better. And that's what we'll focus on. So we have all these big enterprises which have come in and have started using our compute. And with God's grace, they've been coming and giving good feedback to us also. And hence, just by word of mouth, also, there are some customers coming in. Now, with these customers coming in, they're asking some of the very fundamental features, products which we have seen already in the market, like built in last few years by these centralized players. And they're asking same product and features on top of us, right? So that they can actually build the same way they've built on these centralized players, and their migration becomes easy. And that's what we are focusing on, building those features so that right now they've brought in like X amount of dollars from their running business to us, and they see the value because anytime a new business comes in, they basically want to see the proof in the pudding, right? That does it work, right? Is the product there? What the claims are, like, is it really true? All the builders do that historically, right? Whether it be a database they use or a new tool they use, they always try it for some time at a limited capacity, and once they're happy, then they double down. And that's exactly what we have seen. They've used our GPUs, they've used our inferencing platform, some of these enterprise players, and they're happy. Now they're saying we want to double down and use more, but for that, can you build and help us with these features? And if you do that, we can bring all our revenue to you. And those are other features and product we are building, which is like, for example, you'll see VMs on the platform coming very, very soon. We just launched containers on a product, which are already being used by some people. Inferencing engine, like the enterprise version, that's already being used. So we will we'll be focusing on these builder mentality products going forward more after these recent changes, and execution will double down on these features. That's the fundamental change you will see, right?
Great. And then, Bassam, over to you. There's a question about IO intelligence. Will there be possibilities to see some use cases for IO intelligence in the coming months?
Well, Actually, one thing to mention about IO Intelligence is that, as everyone knows, we soft launched it a few weeks back without a major buzz. And basically, we did that to monitor its organic growth before going to market with it. And the results were just phenomenal, like hundreds of thousands of prompts and API requests on a monthly basis across like thousands of active users. But on the use cases side, what we've seen so far is there has been some routing intelligence startups who use our open source models and agents under the hood. Some of the biggest AI agents in the space use our inference APIs as well to perform the language related tasks. So there has been multiple use cases so far, but the most exciting one, honestly, is our upcoming RAG as a service that will be kind of the cornerstone of IO Intelligence. Basically, it works by deploying RAG on top of any open source model you want. And by doing that, the enterprises get accurate and up to data and extremely domain specific answers that they need from such LLMs without having to retrain them or fine tune them, these open source models every time using their data, which basically solves the problem of outdated or generic responses these open source LLMs tend to give. Uh, so that's one of the most exciting things coming up. Another thing to add on top of that, once RAG is released, is think about it this way: if you just pair it up with a web search or a deep search, you end up with having like a Perplexity-like product on IO Intelligence that is going to be almost free. So that's one thing very exciting coming up. So as a whole, like you can think of IO Intelligence as a fundamental execution layer for unlimited use cases, not that just the ones I mentioned, like sentiment analysis, voice gen, image gen, translation, reasoning, anything you can think of. And soon you'll be able to even retrain and fine tune these models for your specific use case straight on IO platform, like the one-stop shop. And that's not even it. Like we'll be launching very soon, just a small teaser, our agentic workflow, which will unlock even crazier use cases in the AI space. But I will leave that to the next AMA or maybe the one after to share bigger, exciting stuff once the MVP is released. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure we're all excited to hear more about that in the coming weeks. There's another question about the recent announcement of entering in 3 Solana wallets into a worker account. Bassem, I'll go back to you. If there could be a bit more explanation about the why in this new feature.
Fair enough. Yeah. Actually, I do get the sentiment behind this question. Like, could have been an oversight from our side not to fully share the rationale behind such a release. But basically, from our perspective, two issues were happening, right? Number one, the suppliers sometimes lose access to their wallets after the claim period is open, which cannot be reversed. So they either lose access to the wallet or they mistakenly use an exchange wallet, which cannot be used to claim. So, which made it impossible for them to claim and started creating like a bit of stress among suppliers. So, this wallet segregation part is the first step towards fixing that. Basically, diversifying your earnings towards these three wallets as a first step, and then we're going to be working towards a smart contract solution as well to cover your earnings in case you lose access to one of your three wallets. If you lose access to all three, fortunately, like we can't keep asking for more, but at least as a first solution, we introduced the three ones. And the second thing is some suppliers themselves request these three wallet feature to be added, mainly because, and I would imagine like the supplier themselves, they are a mini aggregator. They have supply from 2 or 3 parties and so on. And they didn't want the rewards to go straight to one wallet and then distribute it afterwards. They wanted to have that segregated built in the claim function, which is why we introduced this feature.
Got it. Gaurav, now going over to you, there's another question, which is with the current clusters, can I add my own custom mining codes, Rust based programs like other VPS providers?
Uh, the answer for now is no, right? And the reason for that is like historically in the very beginning, there are certain cases happened that when we basically created the network, gave it to the users, some of the folks were using it for mining, and that resulted in the hardware's breaking down and going bad. because people who might not know, like when you basically mine, the usage of your GPUs is like extremely high for a very constant period of time, right? It's always very high. On the other hand, when you basically use for normal like AI workload, sometimes it's used at like a peak of 95%, 98%, then it goes down, right? And so on and so forth. But in case of mining, it's always up. And when you use it in such a use cases, the probability of the hardware going bad is extremely high. And that's what we saw with the people using it in past. And some of the suppliers did complain. So at that time, to take care of the suppliers, we basically blocked this thing. So technically, can you do it if you write your own specific code to basically mine it? The answer is yes, you can, right? But when we will catch it that you're doing it, you basically will be blocked and moved out of the network. And that's predominantly done to keep the supplier side of the network in a healthy state and happy, because our platform takes care of both the user side who's coming from the demand, but we also take care of the suppliers also. And in this case, I think suppliers were unhappy in such cases, and hence we did it. If there is someone specific that who wants to use at a scale, something for mining, I'm pretty sure we have a huge network, and in the background as a part of the managed services, we may help them get a respective supplier, right? And we can connect those guys. But like if you go to the platform, hire a GPU and use it for mining, I think that's a no-no right now.
All right, switching gears to talk about staking. This question is for you, Wasim, which is, when will the pool staking system be implemented?
Yes, the pool staking. Well, honestly, as it stands, we have paused the work on the staking pool implementation, mainly because we want to focus all our attention towards the co-staking product. We want to bring in improved features, more products in the marketplace, and mainly to make the experience a bit smoother overall. But also, we've spent a lot of time of creative solutions towards how can we better incentivize suppliers to make more offers and share the rewards with external co-stakers and so on, which will make the marketplace product reach the success it's intended to. And we've made very good progress so far. So we should be seeing a lot of movement pretty soon on the marketplace. But yeah, it did not make sense to start building the pool staking and so on while we didn't 100% finish the work on the co-staking product. So all our efforts are there right now. And once that's implemented and reached the success that we wanted it to reach, we will probably revisit the pool staking if needed. If not, if the co-staking product is enough, then yes, we will not continue working there.
And then now switching to workers, question for you, Gaurav, which is, when do you expect to have new opportunities to add new workers to the network?
Whenever the demand for respective hardware comes in. For example, we're basically right now discussing about, I think there's some people coming in for H100 and H200 very soon. Like in the managed services side, they have some specific demands for the storage side of things, which they're discussing with us, and the networking side. So we're working with them and getting them the respective connection done. And so that like whatever requirements they have as a part of the managed services, we we get it enabled. So I think you will soon see H100 and H200, H100s and H200s coming to the network. And as a part of that, the network opening up for these specific hardwares. But I think as a policy going forward, the network will always be uh, opening up when the demand for respective hardware will come. It will not just randomly open because a specific hardware gets launched or things around there, right? Uh, Even if we do, for example, we did it for H200 recently. Even though we didn't have demand, we opened up for H200 so that we can basically see how much performant that hardware is, what kind of factor we should give so that they can earn respective block rewards. And if somebody wants to come and try on the platform, they can have it. But those kind of hardwares being added without any usage will always be strategic and always be limited to a very small number. You'll always like 8 GPUs was done for H200, but when you talk about numbers being added at a bigger scale, like 50 GPUs, 100 GPUs, 200 GPUs, or more, that will always be the case going forward when a respective demand from the customer comes in. Right. So that's the philosophy, right? So that we can take care of both the users and the suppliers. The suppliers are always given a right kind of reward so that they're happy as a network, right? That otherwise, if you just blindly keep adding hardware to the network, it'll dilute the supplier side of rewards. So we have to keep that dynamics also in picture, right? I think I'm not sure people know about it, but we have launched one new product which will become quite big. I think will be one of the biggest products for us in the coming time, which we call as a super aggregator. I think that will be one of the game changing products we'll have. So we basically created, imagine in a way, a web of APIs where we are connected with in the background already with more than 10 suppliers, like big data centers and suppliers. They give us the GPUs, and very soon that network will be going and increasing to like more than 50 or 100 data centers. And indirectly, what will happen is there'll be million plus GPUs in the coming months on the IO platform, which is not actively part of the network and earning block rewards, but it is available for the users to hire. So right now, for example, if we have 10,000, 12,000 GPUs on the network, there'll be an offline inventory which people can explore, which country it is in, what hardware type it is, and that million plus GPUs will be coming from this super aggregator, which is like our web of APIs which are connected to all data centers in the background, and we give it to the users, right? And anytime users want a hardware which is not on the active network, at that time, we will basically move this hardware from this super aggregator to the active network, and then the ecosystem will work the way around. So this way, we will keep the balance of like making sure that suppliers are not diluted by adding like blindly huge amount of supply. And on the other side, we will take care of users also, because when they want any kind of hardware from any country, they can explore that also. So this product will enable us to be in a very, very stable and a comfortable state. And we'll again be in a place where we'll be having like 10 times of supply more than any player in the market, right? And plus, yet we will be keeping our suppliers very happy and users very happy. So I think this is the product which we are building. And as a part of the same platform, we are already working in the background where the community folks also, other than these data centers, can also add their hardware, which will be sitting in the queue. So this is one product which is already live, people can explore, but we're doubling down in the background to add more data centers, to add more providers, so that this supply, which is just, I think, 20, 30,000 GPU or something like there, becomes more than a half a million GPUs very soon in next few months. And in some like 6 to 9 months in future becomes a million plus GPUs. That's a plan. And that's what we're building in the background.
Great. Then over to you, sir. There's questions from the community about the M2 Ultra and why maintain the M3 and M4 when the M2 Ultra has the same numbers as the M4 Max.
Fair enough. I mean, the answer to that is quite simple, yet a little bit complicated. The idea is we have a quota for each card, right, and each model, because we want to make sure that the network is as diversified as possible to attract demand. And unlike GPUs, which what Gaurav covers, when demand comes in, we introduce the newer models and so on. It's a little bit different on the CPU side of things, mainly because we don't have as much demand. We're trying to prioritize new models every time that allows us to stay up to market with the support wise, but also allows us to attract demand for these cards. The reality is there hasn't been much demand for the CPU side of things, and we're trying our best to rotate the hardware supports between M2 Ultra and then the M3 and the M4, and going to market with it, testing new technologies, testing new containers, and so it's all in efforts to attract the right side on the market, on the demand side. But so far, there's a huge gap between demand on the GPU side on the CPU side, which That's the complicated part of the answer, right? So it's not merely about quota, it's also about what is the demand side asking for. And we gave M2 chance a lot of room to stay on the network, and we've received very little demand for it. But once we started like rotating, we're introducing the M4 chips and so on, there has been some movement there on that side. Mainly because it's new, maybe because it's flashy and so on. But at the end of the day, the network is demand driven. And so with that experimenting, we're trying to rotate every now and then. And based on how things play out in the upcoming months, who knows? Maybe the demand surges for the M2 Ultra will start supporting it again, and maybe a new M chip comes up. But the reality is, it's all demand driven, and we're trying our best, but just the technology is just not there. Not just from our side, even from the Apple chip side, it's not meant for this specific use case.
And
And then on
just to
that,
add to,
oh yeah, please.
I'm just to add to what Basim is saying, right? Honestly, from our side also, uh, we're focusing on the revenue and keeping the state of the network healthy, and at the same time, basically doubling down on these products which will enable a huge amount of migration from Web 2 to Web 3, right? Which we're already seeing. That's what the main focus is. And as a part of the network, when we give the proof in the pudding in terms of revenue, honestly, the revenue is much higher in GPUs compared to CPUs. That's why, as a network, we are focusing on GPU side. That's why this is also one of the reasons, honestly, we see the less demand in CPU also, right? Because we're building more products on GPUs compared to CPUs. I think the time will come in the near future once we are done with the more I will say a table stake products on GPU side, which are like bare minimal products which you need for companies to give you like a 30-40 million dollar revenue in one chunk, right? As an enterprise. And there are multiple GPU products that you need for that. I think we'll be there in next to 6 to 7 months. And once we are there as a product, then we'll start to focus on the CPUs. But we are always a community driven project, right? We are all That's why we always kept the CPUs, although there's no demand. So I think the part you should also appreciate is that although there is no demand, but we never removed the CPUs. We still gave a good amount of chunk of the block rewards always to CPUs because we do care and value community, right? But on the other side, we always keep a tab on the demand side of things. And as a customer, imagine it in a way that if you are a customer and you go to buy a MacBook, let's say a normal MacBook, right? And you're a normal user who will basically maybe surf Netflix, use YouTube and all. And for you, predominantly all the time, M1 may be good enough or M2 may be good enough. But just because a MacBook 3 or a MacBook 4 is there, people just buy that, right? Even though they can spend half the money, be happy with the use cases, they still demand for M3 and M4. It's the same thing happening in enterprise world also. So when people come and say, I need a MacBook Ultra, although M2 may meet the demand, but they always want M3, right? When we talk about normal hardware also, when the user comes and says MacBook, they always ask for M3 and M4, not the M2. So it's very, again, demand driven, as Bassam said. And we see in normal life also the same thing. We see enterprise also behaving in the same way. So whenever our BD people talk to some suppliers who focus or users who focus on the CPU side of things, they always say the latest two generations of the hardware is the most popular ones. And to be honest, that's exactly what we see in GPUs also. In GPUs, historically, H100 and 4090 were more popular. Now, since the time H200 have been launched, the new demand which we are seeing is in H200 and H100. 4090s have slowed down. In fact, people are asking for 5090s. That's exactly the same thing you see in CPUs. And hence we have removed M2s because the users are asking for the latest generation or the worst case, one generation older, which is M3.
Speaking of that, is there anything else that you would add? There's a question about plans to add the 50 series that's unique to that, or the same thing that it's demand driven.
No, so 50 series, we've internally benchmarked it. We haven't decided what multiplication factor for the block board we'll give, but we already tested it. We have our hands on 5090. We played with it, right? And I think there's some people who are inquiring about it, but as you said, it's again demand driven. One of the customers we were discussing with, they basically just upgraded themselves from 5090 to H200, and I think very soon you'll see H200s fingers crossed, coming on the network with the real usage and revenue. But there are some other potential people who are exploring the 5090s. Uh, Whenever that deal is there, we will see network opening up and those 5090s coming in. For now, there is none uh, signed, because the part you should also understand is a lot of these times when these enterprise people come in, uh, they give you $1 million worth of orders, right? And they always ask for something peculiar. Somebody needs maybe a NFS mounted uh, memory, right? Somebody needs a different kind of memory. So they have always these peculiar demands which we have to cater to as a part of the managed services before giving it to them. And many times they basically play with the hardware also for a few days before they get a confidence on that and then move ahead. So for 5090s, that's happening right now. So 5090 S200, whichever one gets the requirement met and the customer is happy, then I think in a week or 10 days, you will see the network opening up. And either 5090 would come or most of the S200 will come. I don't know which one will be there because that's on the customer.
Great. Well, that covers all the questions from the community, both written and in this space. The one announcement we want to make is that our community AMAs will be switching over to Discord next month. So make sure to be following and become a member of our Discord in order to listen into the next episode. Gaurav and Vasim, want to thank you very much for your questions and your time.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure as always.
Much appreciated. Glad
Thank
to be
you.
here, man.